In a move that further heats up the trade tensions between the two countries, Ontario Premier Doug Ford recently declared he was ready to suspend electricity exports to the U.S. if President Trump insists on slapping heavy tariffs on Canadian goods, a statement that sent shockwaves across the American public. This was no exaggeration. Reuters confirmed Ford explicitly said that if Washington refuses to back down, he would cut the power to the U.S. without losing the smile on his face. Ford went even further. If they want to wipe out Ontario, I'm ready to do everything, including cutting off their power, and I'll do it with great delight, he told an audience at a conference in Toronto. This warning wasn't just aimed at the Trump administration. It instantly made border states like New York, Michigan, and Minnesota feel a sudden chill underfoot. More recently, Ontario officially imposed a 25% surcharge on every megawatt-hour of electricity exported to the U.S., roughly equivalent to $10 USD to $90. The purpose of this surcharge is to offset losses caused by U.S. tariffs while providing financial support for Ontario's workers. It's estimated to generate about $300,000, $400,000 per day, equivalent to USD $208,000, $207,000. From Washington to Toronto, the power switch diplomacy story has become a hot topic not only in cabinet rooms but also on morning news programs. Everyone is talking about it. No one can stay indifferent to a threat that could chill both the power grid and the public mood along the border. As U.S. public opinion was still reeling from Ontario's power cutoff threat, energy experts warned that any hardline move to disrupt electricity and gas flows between Canada and the United States could throw the entire North American energy grid into turmoil. The North American Electric Reliability Corporation, NRC, cautioned that the two countries' power networks are tightly interconnected, and that flipping the switch recklessly could spark a major problem with the potential to destabilize the federal grid. Much of northern U.S. territory depends heavily on Canadian electricity, and a sudden loss of supply could trigger abrupt load spikes, causing overloads or tripped breakers. Even a temporary halt from Ontario or other provinces could push the system into a can't-take-it-anymore scenario, as one official put it, sending chills down the spines of both engineers and political leaders. This has grid safety teams on high alert. According to U.S. Energy Information Administration data, operators in northern states are already working closely with Canadian counterparts on contingency plans to guard against possible supply disruptions if a 10% tariff on imported Canadian electricity comes into effect. The fossil fuel sector is also feeling the tremors. The CEO of Cenovus Energy, one of Canada's largest oil producers, reminded Washington that the U.S. still imports roughly 4 million barrels of oil per day from Canada. Midwest refineries are specifically designed to process the heavy crude that Canada produces, meaning the two economies are essentially wired together, and one pulled plug could stall entire operations. Meanwhile, global energy giant ABB has warned that the proposed tariffs could help create a perfect storm for inflation, driving gasoline, natural gas, and electricity prices into the stratosphere, a skyrocketing bill, shrinking wallet scenario that American consumers may not be ready to face. As the shock from Ontario's threat to halt electricity exports to the U.S. settled in, questions began echoing loudly. Is America truly powerless without Canadian energy? And how would Washington strike back if Ontario actually pulled the plug? In D.C., word spread fast, but the official reaction was muted. Spokespeople stuck to measured lines like, "We are monitoring the situation," while oil, gas, and power industries quietly flipped into contingency mode, boosting domestic output and reviewing import orders from alternative sources. TC Energy CEO François Poirier warned bluntly that tariffs and combative measures could raise fuel prices, jeopardize national energy security, and cut refinery profits on both sides of the border. Washington's restraint may signal it's gathering data to craft the softest viable counter-move. From a strategic standpoint, some analysts see Ontario's cutoff talk as psychological leverage, less about truly switching off the lights and more about forcing Washington to blink first. And the numbers back up Canada's leverage. U.S. Energy Information Administration data show that even with a proposed 10% tariff on energy, Canada remains America's largest oil supplier, averaging 1 million barrels per day, up 5% year-on-year thanks to the Trans Mountain expansion. The entire cross-border energy network runs like a beating heart. Press on it, and you can disrupt the rhythm. Rather than wait, Canada is already shifting into long-game mode. Energy Minister Jonathan Wilkinson has said openly they won't hesitate to use all tools available, including curbing exports of energy or strategic minerals. New proposals under review range from ramping up LNG exports to building a west-to-east pipeline to reduce reliance on the U.S. market. Ontario knows full well that yanking the plug entirely would bring severe fallout. The threat functions more like a rap lyric warning, enough to keep the opponent tense, without actually delivering the knockout punch. Meanwhile, Washington's calm stance belies a state of readiness, staying unprovoked while preparing countermeasures. For Canada, the ultimate goal is clear. Stop playing a single grid game and start building a multi-channel distribution network, tapping into Europe, Asia, and global markets beyond America's reach. In the weeks that followed, the Canada-U.S. energy standoff shifted from a public shouting match to a quieter, more calculated chess game. Both sides knew that cutting power or slapping tariffs were just the visible tips of a complex board where the next moves could shape trade and diplomacy for years to come. From Ottawa's side, the strategy became clearer. Diversify away from near-total dependence on the U.S. The Canadian government ramped up diplomatic missions to Europe and Asia, pursued new bilateral energy deals, and signed memoranda of understanding with several Southeast Asian nations on LNG and clean hydrogen supply. These moves signaled that Canada was serious about broadening its customer base and reducing vulnerability to U.S. trade policy. In Washington, energy policy advisors and trade strategists faced a balancing act: protect domestic refineries and the power grid while avoiding escalation into a full-blown trade war. Leaked internal reports suggested the White House was weighing financial support to help northern states accelerate investment in renewables and federal electricity reserves, a soft shield against Canadian pressure. But industry leaders warned these measures couldn't immediately replace the massive imports from across the border. The media narrative split sharply along national lines. In the U.S., coverage framed Canada as a partner testing Washington's patience, while Canadian outlets portrayed Ottawa's moves as self-defense against harmful U.S. tariffs. Those economic analysts took a more pragmatic view. Both sides were poking without breaking, maintaining pressure while keeping an off-ramp open for negotiations. Investors reacted in their own way. Northern U.S. electricity futures ticked upward, while shares in Canadian energy infrastructure firms rose on speculation that Ottawa would expand exports to new markets. Hedge funds began positioning for profit from potential swings in global energy prices triggered by the standoff. For ordinary people, the immediate effects were muted, but the unease was spreading. Questions like, will there be blackouts this winter? And how high will gas prices go? Became common on forums and social media. Neither Ottawa nor Washington could give definitive answers. But both understood that without a carefully balanced solution, one wrong move could turn this strategic duel into a genuine energy crisis.